Hey there, everybody who's still sticking along, and welcome back to the third installment of Legend of the GLORIO Heroes, where we will be watching the original Legend of the Galactic Heroes OVA and talking about it. As
Yeah,
always, oh, sorry.
yeah, go for it.
Yeah. It's all right. Apologies to everybody. Your hosts for today are quite tired. One has not gotten a lot of sleep, and the other just came back from a rather intense convention.
That's
But
right.
as always, I'm your host, G, and with me is my stalwart companion amongst the sea of stars, Iro.
I guess now I'm only stalwart of this podcast, not the other one.
You
Uh,
know,
yeah, I
titles
mean,
come
yeah.
and go.
I was away at WorldCon, as mentioned, and
Yes.
a couple people I talked to were excited about Legend of Galactic Heroes, including the people who work at the publisher bringing over the novels. They really wanted me to be into Legend of Galactic
Yeah.
Heroes.
Yeah. You should
Yeah, I
have
wonder why.
told them about this hot new podcast that's
Instead, I
airing.
purchased the first two volumes of the
Hey,
novel.
that's cool too. Support support the material. I
Yeah,
respect that. But I'm also saying that
I'm
clearly,
I'm
since
not gonna
nobody
read
else is,
those before until we get to the
yeah,
point.
yes, good. As tempting as it may be, I think we want to keep our experience of this OVA as
Fresh.
spoiler free as
Yeah, I
possible.
had to tell some people, please don't tell me anything.
Right. Yeah. Well, that said, I can understand why they would have wanted to tell you about the next three episodes that we were talking about, and those three episodes are 7 through 9. That being episode 7, the capture of Iserlohn; episode 8, cool, clear cybernetic eyes; and episode 9, the Klopstock Incident.
When I was writing these show notes, I kept writing the Kastrov incident and
Yeah.
kept thinking, no, that's not right because no, yeah, that was like episode 5.
Oh yeah.
Kastrop and Klopstock.
Yeah, you're right, huh?
Maybe a
Those
little too
names.
similar.
Yeah. Huh, that's a good point. I hadn't even
Yeah.
considered that.
The whole
Well,
entire rest of the GLORIO crew was telling us, you need to watch episode 7
and
because
it's
they decided to watch ahead of us on
yeah,
this podcast.
those jackasses.
Motherfuckers. Nah, we
But
love them.
hey, what can we say? We inspire a following.
Yep, it's true.
We convince we are the taste makers of the GLORIO network. Whatever we watch, the people will follow.
Indeed.
After all, it is no coincidence, after all, that after our podcast, Legend of the Galactic Heroes, shot up to the
Became the #1 show on High Dive.
the number one watched show at High Dive. Most certainly,
It's all
not
us.
anybody else. It was entirely us. Yes,
All
it's
us.
all us.
Those 70 views on YouTube really
Exactly.
changed
So High
things.
Dive, when you want to just send us a check in the mail,
Yeah.
just send us a message at our Twitter, and we can talk about the payment details. Anyways, in all seriousness, how about we just get into it, because episodes 7 through 9 are an exciting set of episodes. Maybe my favorite.
Yeah, I think these are actually the best episodes so far.
And I think we should give them the time they deserve. So let's just jump right into it.
Yeah.
So as you might remember from last podcast, episode 7 starts off with Yang Wenli being tasked with taking Iserlohn Fortress.
Yeah. The choke point on the Iserlohn corridor in space, which is the only method of travel between the Free Planets Alliance and the Empire.
Exactly. And the Alliance has tried to take this fortress many times, 6 times exactly, and each time they have been dashed against the rocks of Iserlohn Fortress. And now, Yang Wenli, with a half-strength fleet, must somehow perform the impossible. And how does he? Boy, this episode is...
Yeah. So what the Rosen Ritter are on a decoy Empire ship,
yes,
which has been all busted up missing a engine and smashed up, and begging the garrison at Iserlohn to be accepted at port because they have vital information on a secret alliance plan.
Yeah, and some excellent acting on everybody's part. This operation. Shenkop really doing a great job of hamming up his injury. The
Blood
ship
squibs
doing
and
coughing
barfing.
blood and collapsing. Even even the ship being all convincingly damaged. I'm not sure they did that in D&T, or if they did, it wasn't quite as drastic looking. But
Yeah.
I think this time around, the FPA, they figure if they're gonna put on a show, they might as well
And what a
go all in
show.
on it because yes, so
What a
Shenkop
show.
in disguise, and may I add that Shenkop in disguise introduces himself by his false alias, and as he does, Legend of the Galactic Heroes does the standard like character name
That's right.
introduction thing at the same time, which I think we'll talk about it a little bit this week because I don't think we've had a chance to really go into it. But Legend of the Galactic Heroes actually has a pretty good sense of humor sometimes.
So I think the name thing actually might be the suburbs doing that. I'm not. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure. But
yeah, you're probably right. But hey,
yes,
it's
still
a fun touch.
humor
Yes.
on the show.
But yeah, so Shenkop and the Rosen Ritter managed to sneak on board and demand an audience with Stockhausen. This time we've remembered Stockhausen is the commander who stays behind with the Iserlohn garrison, and Siecht is the one who went out to try and I don't know, bust some shit up. I don't know.
Battle in space.
Yes, but yeah, and this part is just utterly fantastic. The Rosen Ritter in disguise say that they got vital information for Stockhausen. They need to speak to him
confidential information
immediately. The FPA is planning their most daring, most dastardly, most genius tactic they've ever devised to take Iserlohn Fortress. And if they don't speak with Stockhausen this instant, Iserlohn may fall.
Wheel in Shenkop on a stretcher because he's fatally wounded and only has seconds to convey this information to Stockhausen.
And this is where we get some fantastic improv acting on part of the Rosen Ritter, showing that these are men of multiple talents, including acting. When the security detail stops them, and they're like, "Wait a minute, we gotta check something first. We need your ID." And the Rosen Ritter like, "ID? We don't got time for ID. The FPA are at our doors. Look out the window. Look at them." And Yang, fucking gloriously playing along, performs a fantastic little maneuver that
show the monitor just moving back and forth.
Yes, the
tweening back and forth or whatever.
Yes, the FPA ships basically just start repeating the same 6 frames of animation back and forth in space.
It's starting.
Yes. Oh yes, that's one of the Rosen Ritter says that, and the Empire's convinced this is completely unorthodox plan they've never seen before. This maneuver of FPA ships staying in place, moving back and forth repeatedly, must clearly be part of some master plan that the Empire has yet seen. And so they managed to get Stockhausen's ear, and as a result, they managed to get a whole lot more than Stockhausen's ear.
Yeah, get a gun to his head.
When the Rosen Ritter, spring into action, take Stockhausen prisoner, and threaten the rest of the garrison to lay down their arms. And
there is a really good bit here where the second in command starts his whole speech on how the commander would rather give his life in service of the Empire than give it away to you knaves.
And Stockhausen is very much like, that's
wait
a second here. and you know, maybe not explicitly stated, but I very much like that you can glean that that is an ideology that the commanders very much tell their underlings, you know, that
Yeah.
look, it's your guys' job to die with honor so that I get to live to see
Uh,
another day. But you know, when it's him on the line, Stockhausen capitulates quite easily.
yep.
And
But Second Command does hit the lockdown on
yes,
Iserlohn.
yes, and thus the Rosen Ritter, just the three of them by the looks of it, you know, not
I think there's probably at least
there
four.
was it seemed
You know,
inconsistent
maybe,
during this
maybe there is
episode. Like
three. A small number.
it's a small number, and I think there was like 5 or 6 at the very opening shot. But during the rest of the scenes where they're
I mean, they gotta have some people staying with
yeah, they're probably
Stockhausen.
right. They probably like have some of the crew armed, staying with Stockhausen and the other prisoners, and so basically it's up to the Rosen Ritter to fight their way through the lockdown and take over Iserlohn Fortress before
Yeah.
Admiral Siecht returns and completely decimates the vastly outgunned FPA fleet.
Yep.
And what a fucking conquest it is. This is, we were all getting hyped about those axe murders, and holy shit, this episode does not fail to impress. Those
I mean,
axes are
yeah.
made out of some fucking Metal Gear Rising like super vibro metal or something because in all likelihood
High frequency blade.
yeah, like in all likelihood, it's just an animation thing. But the way those axes just fucking cleave through human flesh like it's nothing was truly some of the wildest
Truly
shit I've ever seen.
incredible. Even before the axes, we do get a bit of them just like climbing across gaps and stuff, swinging with their grapple crossbow.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're totally right. That came first. Yes, yes. They grabbed the weapons that were hidden underneath
Stretcher.
Shenkov's stretcher, revealing a couple laser rifles, an axe, and a crossbow. The standard armament of any
Standard,
proper
Space fleet.
yeah space military. But turns out that the Rosen Ritter, they put these tools to good use, and yeah, we should just mention real quick. You get a fantastic bit while they're rappelling their way across the base.
One soldier slips and falls, but still attached to the line.
Yeah,
Breaks his fall, but
yeah. And where does he fall? But
city streets of Iserlohn,
yeah,
which
the
are
civilian sector, I guess.
great.
Yes.
Like, I was kind of wondering if Iserlohn had some sort of like people living there. And I think we saw some of it during the movie.
I think that's highly likely. Is that
man?
Iserlohn is gigantic. I mean, it's like kind of looks like a small planet, and I imagine there's actually a fairly decently sized, if not civilian, then non-combatant population that
right.
Keeps things running. I mean, look, I don't mean to like make judgments, but the way those ladies were dressed, I can't imagine they were soldiers. So,
well, yes,
clearly, other jobs need to be performed.
Some like Macross.
Yeah, exactly. Like it kind of gave me some Macross vibes of like, oh, there's like a functioning city or a town here in the.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, during that montage of the whole ship getting locked down, we see 2 drunk soldiers like stumbling out of the bar.
That's right.
I'll be like, whoa, oh, huh.
What's going on?
I guess that's happening now. But yeah, and so we get this fantastic moment where the soldier, falls, God knows how long of a distance. Probably should have broken his spine, but hey, whatever.
Well, yeah,
And fucking just dangling in the air of this, lower
middle of the city block,
right, where just 2 ladies, or no, just one lady is just hanging out, and the Rosen Ritter are still wearing their fake Empire uniforms. So just runs to this guy dangling in the air, and he just says, "Hey, what's up?" And
hi.
Climbs his way back up. And
such a good
I think it's
20-second moment.
Yeah, it's right around here that you realize when it wants to, Legend of the Galactic Heroes has this whole episode has been kind of Legend of the Galactic Heroes has a pretty great sense of humor when it wants to, and B, the Rosen Ritter are probably like my favorite minor faction in this show. Like they are so fucking smooth. It's unbelievable. Like at every turn in this episode, like no matter what adversity they face, they find some way to just
smooth even when
their way through it.
Even when burning a dozen people to death with Zephyr particles,
Right. I'm glad you
they're
mentioned that, Iro.
smooth.
Yes, the Rosen Ritter get the upper hand in the skirmish against the rest of the garrison by doing something that's pretty canny, but also pretty messed up, where they basically throw a like Zephyr particle dispersal grenade that in and of itself doesn't explode, but it disperses those particles in the air that, as we talked about last podcast, basically ignite upon any any laser weapon being fired, and yeah, some Empire dudes try to fire a shot and
Get
incinerates the entire.
horribly killed.
Yeah, like
Hard
incinerates.
corpses.
Yeah, like half the goddamn garrison right then and there. And Iro, you mentioned that there was this good
Yeah,
bit here
there's
for,
a good moment right after this happens where one of the Rosen Ritter is basically about to say, "Yo, what we did was real fucked up," or something along these lines, and Shenkop tells him to keep quiet because he knows
yeah,
war's dirty business. As it
yeah,
turns out,
exactly.
couldn't kill all
Soldiering.
those guys with axes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Should
it's
be
the thing,
noted
but
also, the
yes.
Rosen Ritter are not the only people with axes.
Oh no. The Empire also ready to axe fight as soon as they realize that their rifles will be useless.
Fix bayonets.
Which tells me that this is a pretty common occurrence in the Legend of the
Yeah,
Galactic Heroes
because
universe.
they don't have. It's not that they just have axes on them. They have like axe heads that go on the stocks of their rifles.
Yeah,
Which,
I rather like that.
sure.
I kind of like that as a conceit. It's
Yeah.
honestly I'm not going to talk about like the independent art stuff I do outside of this podcast, but I have many times thought about like the mechanics of how one boards a ship without blowing up the ship from the inside out, and apparently Legend of the Galactic Heroes thought about this too, because these are not improvised weapons. These axes are clearly standard issue. The way that everybody just naturally grabs them and
whips them out.
gets ready to fight says, "Oh, these people are used to this." Like
or have at least been trained for it.
Right, like this Zephyr particle, like shit is standard, is like the standard MO, it seems, for man to man combat on ships, and it kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
You're the Rosen Ritter, and it might be a dirty tactic, but also when you're basically outnumbered, like 3 to 50 or something, you're gonna take
Do what you
whatever
gotta do.
you're gonna take whatever option evens those odds a little, and I don't know, the way it looks during that fight, it seems like they didn't really need to even the odds that bad, because even when they're still outnumbered by the garrison, fucking the Rosen Ritter, just the
Chopping
three of them
dudes up.
fucking get to work. Yeah, just really very much running with the hatchet here, just massacring these Empire soldiers.
This is very different from how it happened in Dinoid Teze.
Yes, it's very different, which it's, we don't need to go into it too much, but it does make me wonder, like, why DNT chose to do it the way it did versus...
I mean, to be honest, it is a little hokey.
It's a little hokey, but it's also so good, and you cannot tell me
absolutely.
that, like, oh my god, like, we love the space politics, we love these tactics, but... sometimes when this show just cuts loose and you're just like, all right, this episode is just going to be fucking axe murder central, for 22 minutes. We can appreciate the spectacle of it. And it's the thing that makes me then wonder, because as we've mentioned and as we've been told, there are aspects of D&T that were actually more faithful to the original novels than the OVA, and now I can't help but wonder, was this axe fight something done to kind of spice up the OVA?
Well,
was D&T's far drier take on the Capture of Iserlohn actually, and maybe in some ways more real to the books? We're not quite sure, in
a few weeks, once we're done with however many episodes are in Volume 1, I'll report back.
Yeah. I mean, well, we could talk about it later. I still have some worries about reading the first book even after we've passed that point in the OVA, because if D&T is any indication, like, there might be stuff in that book that's that's mentioned way earlier in the book and doesn't get,
Yeah,
we don't get too much later in the OVA. So
that's fair. That's fair.
it's definitely worth thinking about. But that aside, eventually the Rosen Ritter managed to take Iserlohn,
Yep.
and thank goodness they do, because on the other end, Yang is also bluffing out of his mind here a little bit, where
Yeah.
he is
Claiming we have Iserlohn before we actually have Iserlohn.
right. He Seeked is hot on his tail, and actually Seeked gets within firing distance and could completely decimate Yang's fleet. And and Yang kind of knows this, and he bluffs. He bluffs. He's they announce, "Hey, we captured Iserlohn Fortress. If you come any closer, we'll fucking blast you." And they don't actually have Iserlohn Fortress yet, and Yang is actually totally a sitting duck here, But he also fucking pulls some Romance of the Three Kingdoms Zhuge Liang shit here, and fucking Seek fucking gets wigged out. He's like, no, I can't attack them now. That they're planning something. They clearly the FPA commander isn't such a fool that he would just stand here vulnerable in the middle of space unless he had a daring plan ready to utterly humiliate me in battle. No, we must wait. And unfortunately for Seek, that's exactly what Yang wants.
About that. So, man, just speaking of Zhuge Liang, Kei Tomiyama, the voice actor for Yang Wenli, voiced Zhuge Liang in an anime version of Romance of the Three Kingdoms.
Yes, so quite fitting. But and all there's a lot to get through this episode, so maybe we'll try to do it quick. But also Oberstein is here.
Oh yeah, man, Oberstein.
Oberstein is basically like cynical asshole Yang, but on the Empire side, because he is
we should attack now.
Yes, he is very much the man on the Empire side with the clipboard saying, "Hey, Captain, shit's fucked," and he is the one also getting promptly ignored by his incompetent superiors. And unfortunately, Oberstein was right, and Yang manages to stall long enough for the Rosen Ritter to succeed in taking Iserlohn, and manages to dock safely inside. And once Yang has taken Iserlohn, then Seek, being humiliated, is like, well, shit. Now we
time to attack.
Time to attack.
Take it back from those rebel dogs,
right? And Oberstein's like, shit's fucked. Now we definitely shouldn't fight.
You just told me to fight.
Right, and
what are you, a coward?
Oberstein very much is just like, well, shit's changed. Like,
I'm out of here.
Yeah, and
Oberstein just fucks off.
Yeah, Oberstein sees the writing on the wall. Seeks fucking talking a big rhetoric about, look at a proper Empire commander dies with honor.
You don't understand a soldier's heart.
Right, and oh man, like, let's just get into it, man. Fucking.
He pulls the trigger.
Not only does he pull the trigger, but in this, basically Yang is like, hey, surrender or don't, and withdraw. Like, we've taken Iserlohn. If you don't, like, we might have to do some drastic shit. And Seek, obviously is like, fuck that. Charges in. Yang pulls the trigger, and you can just see this look on his face, man. Like,
Yang is mad.
Well, not yet. Yang first gets sad. When the first time he pulls the trigger,
right? Yes,
it's a warning shot.
Exactly how many people he just killed. Yeah,
Yang, like, let me said, like, Yang is the one who pulls the trigger. Those hundreds of thousands of lives, that's on him. But he does it because he only does it because he's left with no other choice.
What else are you gonna do?
Right, exactly. At that point, it's him or them. And as a leader, he is responsible for the lives of his own men. This is just the reality of war. And he fires that warning shot, and Seek still charges in. And this is where we get a very rare angry Yang, like talking about like in Street Fighter when they introduce like Dark Ryu and Evil Ken as characters. Like, fucking angry Yang might as well be like an entirely different character, man. He's scary. I was scared, man. I was I was shaking.
Because of bastards like him that the war never ends.
Right. Great line there. Thank you, Iro. Yes, that Yang says, basically, it's assholes like Seat. It's guys like him that war is the endless cycle that it is. And
Pulls the trigger again.
yeah, but this time,
focus all fire on the flagship.
yes. And once their leader is killed, predictably, the rest of the soldiers flee the battle.
Yep.
And so,
turns out most people don't actually want to just
die with honor,
throw their lives away.
No, also quote unquote honor here, honor in scare quotes. Like there's no honor to be had in this fight.
Yep.
But
of course, assholes in the high positions can,
they get absorbed in their own bullshit, and they don't consider the lives of the people that they are responsible for commanding. Like very much that is the difference between guys like Seek and guys like Yang. Is Yang like don't fucking get it twisted. Yang will put a motherfucker in the dirt, but he will only do that when all other options have been exhausted. It's often said by people that that war is the option you use when you either don't have or don't care for any other methods remaining. And Yang is very much a example of the former, someone who fights because no alternative has been left for him.
Yeah.
And he understands that, war is not a frivolous thing. Even if he survives this battle, and he does, he takes Iserlohn Fortress, is greeted the hero.
No casualties.
No casualties.
They're calling him Yang the Magician.
Yang the Magician, or Miracle Yang, whichever is your preferred brand of Yang based title of praise. But and that's the thing, right? Like he did that, and he got those no casualties, and but he also had to kill people to do that. And Yang is definitely the kind of person though who understands that responsibility.
So much so that even though he really, really wants to retire, Admiral Sitole tells him, if you retire, it's going to happen to all of your men in the 13th Fleet.
Mm-hmm.
This halfway hodgepodge fleet made up of survivors and new recruits and undesirables.
I don't know if it necessarily goes that far.
No,
but...
I meant like that was the wrong word to use.
I mean, maybe you could actually. I don't know. With the Rosen Ritter, you definitely have your questionable rogue elements that Yang has kind of brought together. So
and Yang stays on.
He his resignation is refused, and he stays on as commander of the 13th Fleet. And as much as I love this episode for all the fun, the good humor and the crazy action, I also love it because of stuff like what we see here at the end of this episode, where Yang just looks so tired.
Yeah.
He's
drawn bags under his eyes and everything.
He just looks so tired. And you can tell this shit weighs so heavily on him. But what other option is there? Abandon his fleet? Let some other more incompetent, commander take command, who will likely throw their lives away for nothing in the way Seek did. It's very much that, Yang is damned. He is damned by his sense of obligation and responsibility, but also his idealism and the way it is constantly tested by the realities of the war with the Empire.
Precious child Yang Wenli.
Yeah.
Doesn't deserve this.
Best boy Yang. And so with that episode, we kind of close on the FPA for a bit.
Yep. And back to the Empire.
Episode 8, Cool Clear Cybernetic Eyes.
Oof.
Where we get some fantastic kind of world building stuff at the start of this, where they kind of talk about how did the Golden Bomb Destiny come about. And it turns out that Rudolf Goldenbaum, what was ostensibly a commander or a leader of some Confederate faction within the
Yeah.
original space galactic uh,
Space Force or something or
republic
other.
or whatever. Uh, takes control. He takes control in the way that fascist dictators do. He capitalizes on people's weakness and the inherent desire of many people to abandon the responsibilities of statecraft.
Indeed.
The inherent responsibility that democracy demands of every citizen, and you know, place their faith in a strong, seemingly charismatic, seemingly uh, infallible ruler who will take care of everything.
Yeah, but, it'd be nice. He knows. Kaiser Rudolph knows what's best for us.
Exactly,
I
exactly.
think. I think he'll do a good job. Uh, Even with the Inferior Genes Exclusion Act.
And the purging of the undesirables and the institution of or not the
Uh,
institution, but the removal of basic fundamental rights that
yeah.
that were parts of that civilization before his rise. But we kind of move on to the rest of the empire, modern day, or modern day empire, and after the
Yeah.
taking of Iserlohn and the reaction to it. And
The three chiefs of staff for the Empire military are in trouble.
yes, and they are worried.
All three try to resign
Yes,
simultaneously.
they see the writing on the wall. They know that this shit, because Seekt is dead and Stockhausen is rotting away in an FPA prison, that they're next on the chopping block. They're the next culpable people, or at least they will be if they can't pin this all on Oberstein, the only surviving
This-
officer of the Battle of
yeah,
Iserlohn,
a
quote-unquote
deserter.
Battle of Iserlohn, and a deserter, which in the highly kind of very much old school militarized culture of the empire, that this is the kind of civilization that looks at deserters or tactical retreat with a very sneering tone.
Oh yeah.
And Oberstein's not a fool. He's no fool. In fact, Oberstein with this episode reveals himself to be maybe
Smartest person in the Empire.
one of the empire's smartest individuals.
Goes straight to Reinhard.
Yes,
Just right up to his office.
yes. Oberstein makes a hell of a gamble here. Maybe one of the riskiest in his life, but also he's not going to have much of a life left anyways if he doesn't,
Yep.
make this gamble. And that is
he's basically court-martialed already.
yes,
For deserting.
exactly. Yeah. He's
Goes
on the way
to
out.
Reinhardt's office and says, "Hey, I fucking hate the Golden Bump Dynasty. Pretty sure you do too. I'll pledge my allegiance to you. I think you know that I was the only smart guy at Iserlohn because I'm the only one who survived."
Yeah, basically, Oberstein engages in something that otherwise we have completely not seen so far in the Empire, and that is realpolitik. That is the essence of politics and statecraft removed entirely from the concepts of ideologies or rhetoric, and Oberstein makes a huge bet because he's only met Reinhard once.
That's right.
Other than that, he's heard of Reinhard's other actions. He's heard of his victory at a start. He's heard of that. Reinhard's chief of officers are lower level nobles who he picks the based on merit rather than bloodline, and
And
he
really,
knows these
what does he
things,
have
but
to lose in
right.
the first place?
But not only that, but he still doesn't really know for sure. Or it's
right.
still an educated guess that Reinhard is the one person in the Empire who, when I tell him that the way the Empire does things fucking sucks, and that you secretly totally think that I was completely in the right at Iserlohn, that you are not going to immediately have me executed for treason. The
He
second
does
I
ask.
say
He even asks Kircheis to leave the room.
yeah,
Beforehand.
and that's a thing. At first, that's the thing I kind of like about this this dialogue is that Reinhard initially does not play along.
Right.
At first, Reinhard keeps the mask on. Reinhard plays the role of the the proper Empire commander, where he's like, "Oh, this is
Arrest this
treason."
man for treason.
Exactly, and and Oberstein, he basically lays it out. He's like, "You could arrest me, or I could help you destroy the Golden Bomb dynasty." And I think you're smarter than that, Reinhard. You know I can be useful to you. And
Yep.
yeah, basically, Reinhard enlists the aid of Oberstein, and kind of makes a big, kind of fun political play here, where
refuses position of all three chiefs of staff.
yeah, you kind of want to.
Kaiser says, "Hey, which position do you want?" Takes none of them.
Yeah. So basically, to give
In
it
a
some
way,
context. Oh, go ahead.
I think in a way, like being admiral of the fleet gives him more power than being in a cushy office job somewhere.
Right. Well, not only that, but I think Reinhard says it in this episode, like, why the hell would I want one of those positions? I want to be king. I want to be the Kaiser.
Right.
Like, what good is, a high-ranking staff office position? That's just higher up the ladder. It's not the top. Like, if it doesn't get me at the top, I'm not interested. But not only that, but, kind of to give it that context that you were talking about, Iro, basically, the three, chief of staff resign, and they're like, we out. And the Kaiser, Friedrich the Fourth, is like, hey Reinhard, so 3 new positions opened up in the Empire, military. Which one do you want? And Reinhard's like, and that's the thing, Reinhard, he plays the role of the naive goody two shoes here, where he's like,
yes,
I couldn't possibly dishonor these men and take their roles,
Yeah.
And like
it wasn't their fault. It was the rebel dogs.
Right, exactly. And it works because he saves face. Reinhard increases his own, like, if not explicit hard power, he massively increases his soft power social standings.
Right. Yeah.
And the three chief of staff know this. They basically have a conversation right after this where they're like, "That fucking kid set us up. Now we're indebted to him." And like, not only that, but he's totally going to use this as a bargaining chip so that we can't court martial Oberstein.
Yep.
And it works.
It works.
Basically, Reinhard buys Oberstein's services with the position of one of those chief of staff, and we kind of
gets his first advisor.
Yeah.
Which he has not had any.
Exactly.
So far.
And oh man, this episode fucking.
It's a heavy episode.
Not only that, yeah, we haven't even gotten to like the flashback part of this episode. I'm looking at my notes here. So we kind of have a flashback now to Reinhard and Kircheis' younger days. Kind of thinking about.
Yeah.
They think back on the or Kircheis, I believe, is the one reminiscing right on the kind of the beginning of Reinhard's true ambitions, because at the beginning of this episode we have this good parallel, right, where Oberstein is basically saying, like, Reinhard, I bet you're the kind of person who wants to see the Golden Bomb dynasty destroyed. And then we get this flashback that kind of confirms that, where a kind of young Reinhard and Kircheis in their military academy days run to a woman being sexually assaulted by a noble, and
Reinhard just picks up a
pipe,
log.
like a metal pipe or something, just lying around in the city alley. Yeah,
just probably dead.
I love it. It's the return of true Reinhard. The Reinhard we saw as a child, whose first
crazed, impulsive Reinhard.
Yeah, whose first instinct when he sees something bad going on is to grab the closest hard object near him and smash it over somebody's head.
Just take a gun and shoot people.
Yeah, and we kind of have this moment where Reinhard and Kircheis, kind of come to the conclusion that
it's only been 500 years since Kaiser Rudolph, claimed so much power and started the empire.
Yeah.
It's so strange to think that I could do the same.
Yeah, and not only that, but he talks about how, in our current day, we venerate Kaiser Rudolph as a god king, the father of our country. But once upon a time, he was just a man. And not that he was just a man, he still is just a man. That's all he ever was. But our society has become so warped that we are now expected to worship him akin to a god. And
Yeah.
we kind of we kind of get a lot of the stuff from Reinhard that we kind of really needed from DNT, which is really seeing Reinhard's true ambitions laid bare. And
Yeah. It's distaste for the current system.
yes, and it's the kind of things that we could glean from DNT. It's the kind of things that we knew were like kind of implied in his actions in DNT,
Yeah.
but without them being explicitly spelled out, that was technically only conjecture on our side.
Yep.
And so the OVA kind of confirms it. Like, I'm not necessarily going to ever. I don't think I'm ever going to be in Reinhard's camp. Like, the only way I could ever be in Reinhard's camp is if he met. The only way I'm in Reinhard's camp during these episodes is because he's dealing with people even like more assholish than he is. Like, I think I'm always going to be a young guy through and through, but I think I'm ready to accept that Reinhard is capable of being the dual protagonist of Legend of the Galactic Heroes. I think with these episodes, he kind of solidifies himself as being capable of carrying that weight, because we see his righteous indignation at the ills of the society and the system he lives in, and at least based on what we've seen, he is fully committed to at least for now, taking it down.
Until he turns bad and Kircheis has to stop him.
Yeah. I mean, again, we see again in this episode, Kircheis is Reinhard's humanizing, moderating, restraining element.
Tells him Oberstein is a dangerous man.
Yeah. And but also that Reinhard knows that, and they're both going to be using each other. And there's a part of me that very much hopes that Oberstein is actually smart enough to use Reinhard. Like, I don't necessarily like Oberstein, but I think if there is anybody who could be the linchpin of Reinhard's character, if anybody could represent...
Dude's been fucking unflappable so far.
Yeah. Like, the thing is that, so far, Reinhard's been, invincible, basically. Like, nothing has really been an obstacle to him. And I'm really hoping that with Oberstein, like, we get somebody who... I want Oberstein to be the kind of person who is undeniably useful to Reinhard. Like, I want Oberstein to be the kind of guy who can do things that Reinhard can't or is unable to, but is also represents this huge, glaring weakness, so to speak, that Reinhard has to be constantly wary of, because let's be honest, Oberstein is not a trustworthy dude. No. Like, I feel like of anybody in this story, like, countdown to Oberstein's portrayal is like
just already on screen.
Right, is already on screen. And speaking of on screen, this episode then concludes itself with
Kaiser Friedrich.
Yes. In this day and age, there have been 36 Galactic Kaisers. And nothing
36 Galactic Kaisers.
36 Galactic Kaisers. What a glorious phrase. It's the kind of thing you could only get in this
something like Legend of Galactic Heroes.
But yeah, it basically concludes that 36 Galactic Kaisers over a scant 500 years in the grand history of mankind. That's not that much. Nope. And all things must come to an end. And
the Golden Bump Dynasty is going to come to an end in our era.
Yes.
Hopefully reach a magnificent end.
Yes. Yes, that was said by Friedrich IV, the current Kaiser of the Golden Bomb Dynasty, who we get a little backstory of in episode 9.
I think it was funny that we were talking about him, that they don't show too much of him, right. Well, I'm interested to see what kind of ruler he is, and then episode 9 opens with this exact shit.
I swear to God, dude, every time I voice my concerns about this show, literally the next episode is like, Gee, I heard you had some issues with this character. Allow me to explain. And I was like, oh, why did I ever doubt you, Legend of the Galactic Heroes? You know me too well. You're too good. You never ever screw up. And
so episode 9, the Klopstock Incident begins with a brief segment on the history of Kaiser Friedrich IV's rule.
Yeah, you want to just kind of summarize it?
Mostly ineffectual rule.
Yes.
So it's like his brothers were further up the line to ascend to the throne, but one was like arrested, executed for plotting to murder the current Kaiser, which turned out to be because he was framed by the second brother, who also is arrested, executed.
Yes.
So Kaiser Friedrich just kind of falls into the position, even though he's just kind of a shitty nobleman who
He's just a shitty nobleman. Like,
yeah,
we see
just
that
engages in
literally,
debauchery and faffing about.
wine and women.
Yep.
The classic noble pastimes. I kind of love it. Like, also, like, just want to bring up real quick is that he is the middle sibling. In fact, he is not
Oh,
the
I see.
youngest. So in fact, theoretically, he is not even like he is actually closer in line, but also he has such a distaste for it that's how the younger brother was able to contend at all, which really shows you how badly Friedrich the Fourth did not want this job. But
Yeah, I think that
turns
they said
out,
that the past 5 Kaisers, like, or something. Is that right?
I think they said
multiple assassinations.
I think they said 5 Kaisers had been assassinated in the last
That's right. Past like decade or something.
decade, or not. I don't know necessarily decade, but century or something like that.
Point is,
Yes.
relatively short tenure as Kaiser.
Yeah. We said 36 Galactic Kaisers, which sounds like a lot, but if you divide that by 500, that's actually a 13, 14-year reign. That's, grand scheme of things, that is a short time to rule a country when you are a despotic dictator who only transfers power upon death. That's a short average, actually. But
so his son, right?
I think it's his son-in-law, actually. I think
a prince, let's say,
Prince
is
Prince Braunschweig
throwing a big party.
Yes.
As the noblemen of the empire want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just throw lavish balls just because we fucking can, I guess. But
and invited to to this ball is Marquis Klopstock.
Okay, it's Marquis. All right,
yes,
yeah.
It's Marquis Klopstock, who a disgraced nobleman exiled from the courts of the Golden Dynasty.
I was gonna say Duke, and I was like, that doesn't sound right to me.
For Duke, Marquis, all these freaking noble titles, they're all the same,
Yeah.
What rich asshole who's only there by virtue of his birth. I mean, even like real quick, even fucking Friedrich the Fourth, right? Like, if you ever needed a better like illustration that hey, maybe familial inheritance is actually a very poor method of deciding your head of state, look to Friedrich the Fourth, who the best you could say is that he didn't like terrorize his civilians that much. By the standards of the rulers of the dynasty, like he was too incompetent and mediocre to be a horrible tyrant.
Sure,
that's really the best you can say. But anyways, so Marquis Klopstock exiled from the court for basically backing the wrong horse.
Supporting one of the other brothers,
right, 30 years ago. And he's basically like, oh, but it's ancient history, please.
Let me back into the court.
Yeah, courtly bullshit, right? And of course, both, and that's the thing. Like, if you want like a good contrast between like the way Oberstein and Reinhard were talking, prior episode, this episode where these two nobles are talking, and it's just dripping with that like fucking,
self-effacing bullshit.
Exactly, because as soon as they leave,
everyone's like, man, fuck that guy.
Yeah, fuck that dude. I fucking gave him that painting. I fucking licked his shoes. Fucking asshole. Still like shitting on me. But hey, you know what? Like, he's gonna get his soon enough.
Yep.
And so Prince Braunschweig and throws this ball. This lavish ball that
everybody invited. Kaiser invited. To Reinhard.
Kaiser's invited. Hey, Reinhard's invited, and Reinhard very much doesn't want to go.
I think the scene was really great because Reinhard basically sitting on the couch and like saying, "I don't want to go."
Right.
But like, it also really reminded me of Yang sitting at home during the political
Oh
rally,
yeah, very
being
much
like, "Oh, just going for this guy's like, oh, Nico, count me out."
exactly
Uh,
like in many ways, Young and Reinhardt are similar in some ways, where
yeah.
they're both men who have very little patience for unnecessary pomp and circumstance. And it's just funny because Reinhardt is so like bratty in this like moment that like as Iro can attest while we were watching this, for some reason my brain had considered that this must have been a flashback to like 5-10 years ago because Reinhardt was being such a brat about this.
I
Like
don't want to go party.
like Kircheis, like bless Kircheis once again continues to be
Don't worry,
Reinhardt's
I'll be there
reason.
with you.
Right, like literally his
Aw.
fucking like Reinhardt's fucking mom is like, I'll hold your hand, I'll come with you, I'll be like, don't worry, Reinhardt, I'll be waiting in the car. Like if you
Oh my
need me,
god.
like I'll come running. Like don't worry, you don't have to stay too long. Just say hi to all the nobles, and then we can go home, and we can like have tea with your sister.
Oh, it's such
It's
fucking
so
good.
fucking. Oh my god! It's just
So good.
like let's guys like like we're framing this as very patronizing, but Kircheis being the very good friend he is, is just like don't worry, man. Like I'll be there for you. They have this very good line where Reinhardt's like, I hate the prince. and Kircheis, and I'm sure the prince hates you, but he invited you anyways, didn't he? And it's so good. It's so good.
Oh, it's like fucking when you're 6 and
You don't want to go to
birthday
like the
party.
birthday party.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh my god, fucking.
But he goes anyway.
He goes because he has to, and Reinhardt, Kircheis will be there, so
It's the nice Baroness whose name I cannot
I
recall.
apologize to the Baroness who shows up this
Yes.
episode. I completely
She seems alright.
blanked out her name. Yeah, she seemed like one of those nobles that like kind of. I mean, she's still part of the system. She's still like, complicit in it. She's still in a position of privilege, but also she has enough of that like self-awareness of like, oh, this is all bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's bullshit that benefits me, but it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
And so, Reinhardt goes to the ball, and Kircheis like, don't worry, hun. I'll stay in the car. I have some work to do. I'm going to work
with
on my fucking.
my beautiful ornate engraved laptop.
Yes.
Like,
Kircheis' laptop is a fucking work of art. It is.
how did Gel describe it? Like his ornate sterling silver laptop.
Fucking silver engraved laptop, like the fucking, like, the fucking like MacBook of the Empire is this just ostentatious, over the top thing.
It's so good.
It's unbelievable. It's amazing. Kircheis' laptop is on so many levels. It's so good. It's so good. But anyway, so Reinhard tends the ball, runs into the Marquis Klopstock, who conspicuously is
quickly
walking
leaving the party. Yeah.
Quickly leaves the party. Doesn't want anything to do with it. Leaves his cane behind. But nobody notices at the time. Reinhardt's kind of there, fucking schmoozing with the nobles. Not really. He fucking hates them all.
There's actually a great conversation with the Baron or whatever.
Baron Flegel.
Baron's the Baron Flegel. Okay.
Yes. Who you already know is a piece of shit because his name is Baron Flegel.
And Reinhardt fucking straight up calls all the nobles ill-bred dogs.
It's so good. And like to further expound on Reinhard
Mongrels.
just basically being like slightly less murderous Dio Brando is a part where he literally says, I spend all fucking day listening to the yapping of you ill-bred dogs. Sometimes I gotta kick one.
For your own good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Just Reinhard going ham on these shitty-ass nobles. That's it. Baron Flegel does get a pretty good snipe on Reinhard. He goes below the belt where he's like, what does he say exactly?
I'm sure your sister's doing well.
Right, like, I hope your sister's doing well. Which, I don't know, Baron Flegel. On one hand, that was a good snipe. On the other hand, you're probably on Reinhard's like shit list now, and like Reinhard is a man who's going to play the long game. Maybe 40 episodes from now, when Reinhard is Space King, he's going, "Hey, Baron Flegel, remember that time you said something about my sister?" Blah! Just like that.
Yeah.
But not yet. So Kircheis being Kircheis being perfect in basically every way, including being space Sherlock Holmes, notices that Klopstock left without his cane, and clearly
How odd.
the only reasonable explanation is that Reinhard's life is in danger.
Oh no. Yeah.
And before we get to that, so yeah, as you might have guessed, obviously it's a bomb, but it's a bomb intended for the Kaiser, who doesn't show up
Nope.
because
Drank too much.
he got wasted on the way to the party, and so typical. Typical, like, this is I gotta be honest, man. This is some fucking college freshman shit. Like, don't get me wrong. You pregame because you don't want to spend too much at the bar or the club. Totally reasonable.
Right.
Nothing
Yes.
against drinking before the party. Getting wasted before the party, though, that's some freshman shit. Right, that's some grand blue shit. I'm frankly a little disappointed in Kaiser Friedrich IV for making such a basic bitch mistake. But you know what? It saves his life because
Unless the clock strikes 7.
yeah, actually a lot of people's lives get saved entirely by happenstance this
Right, because
episode.
everyone kind of starts bailing when they find out the Kaiser won't be there.
Everybody starts to leave because the Kaiser's not there, so the party's already ruined. Kircheis is trying to get in because, like, there's some shit going down. I don't know for sure. And the guy at the front is being all shitty. He's like, what's this commoner want? What do you want? Like, who are you? And he's like, I'm Reinhard's aide. And they're like, oh yeah, you're Reinhard's aide, huh? What's your rank? I'm motherfucking vice admiral, bitch.
Oh, Regalia!
And you're right. The dude right. The guy who comes out is like, I'm commissar blah blah blah. I'm the aide to Prince Brunschoy. And motherfuckers, I'm vice admiral of Admiral Reinhard von Lohengram's fleet, bitch. And of course, Kircheis doesn't say that, but we all know that's kind of what he's saying, right? And they're all like, "Oh shit, we're so sorry, sir." And Kircheis tries to run in there. He's like, Reinhard, it's some shit's going down.
Trap.
It's a trap.
It's something.
But Reinhard is too busy helping out an old lady who fainted. who fainted in the middle of the party at 6:59. And of course he looks around. I need this lady needs to rest somewhere. There, that empty bench.
There's a cane here. Someone take this away.
What's this cane doing here, steward? Get this cane out of the way. And so entirely by happenstance, Reinhard
survives.
Reinhard is spared from the Klopstock plot, and we are treated to a very cute moment, maybe the cutest moment I have seen in this entire show.
Kircheis,
where Kircheis, the bomb goes off.
searching the ruins.
Yes,
for Reinhard. Reinhard finally finds him just sitting in a corner, hanging out.
Yeah, and we get a fantastic line where Kircheis is holding him. He's like, Reinhard, where are you? And Reinhard replies, "Oh, Kircheis, good you're here. I knew you would find me if I just remained still." And it's so cute. It's so fucking cute. Fucking.
That's what Mom told me to do if I ever get lost at the store.
It's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. Reinhard continues to be the fucking 6-year-old child where he's just like, Mom told me if I stayed still, she would find me. And that's exactly what Kircheis does. And you definitely around this part begin to understand why the Fujoshi.
They love these two.
Loved these two, and it's why I'm not going to go as far as accuse the Fujoshi fan base of Legend of the Galactic Heroes being Empire supporters, but if nothing else, why they're such big fans of Reinhard and Kircheis. Because with this episode, I got to admit, I think their dynamic has been fully validated. I think
definitely
you really now understand. Like you only get hints of this in D&T. Which is kind of a shame. Like, this episode wasn't in D&T at all, and you kind of understand why, because in the grand scheme of things, this episode wasn't super vital.
Right.
So, for now, it wasn't super vital, but it does a fantastic job of establishing Reinhard and Kircheis' relationship. Like, they'll never straight up say it, they'll beyond the occasional, stuff where like Reinhard's saying like you're a good man, Kircheis, like these are men who are bound by the responsibilities they bear, but it's moments like these where in these kind of life or death situations where they reveal how much they care for each other.
Yeah,
And then the
for
Baroness shows
sure.
up and is like, "Hey, look, there's an unopened bottle of wine. Now it's a party."
Yeah. Oh, that the portrait of the Kaiser Rudolph's
Oh
burning.
yeah, right. So we
This
didn't
is
even
pretty ironic, isn't it? It's
yeah,
so great.
right. We didn't even mention this. Right, this whole thing gets started off because Marquis Klopstock presents to Prince Braunschweig a portrait of Rudolph Goldenbaum, and and Prince Braunschweig accepts the present, as basically payment for getting into the party, and unfortunately, all the other shitty nobles also survived, but at least this shitty ass portrait goes up in flames, you know, and yeah,
I
yeah.
think
So
that's why
yeah,
I was like, yeah, the Baroness is pretty all right.
yeah, yeah. She's all right, and
It's
like, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, when she's just like, oh yeah, that portrait's burning. This is pretty cool.
Hey man, look, you survived a bombing, and like you're just gonna drink in the rubble of this party, like you
Indeed.
enjoy, live your best life.
Yep.
And the episode ends with Klopstock hearing that, hey, guess what? Your bomb plot totally fucking failed by every possible metric.
Couldn't
The
kill the
Kaiser's
Kaiser. Couldn't
alive.
kill the prince.
Yeah. Like, all the
Just
nobles are fine. Like, nice job. You probably killed that steward who was, like, tasked with taking that cane
yep.
away. Like, he probably died. Nice going. And,
Yep.
burns his house down. Goes down with the Klopstock estate.
Yep.
And,
What was left of it?
yeah, and this episode kind of ends with saying, I think, right, this is the part where I think where they said in the history of the Galactic Empire or something or in
Among
the last
recent
century,
Kaisers, 5 were
right,
assassinated.
5 were assassinated, but the number of people who were killed, as a result of of plots, successful or not, is innumerable, is unknowable, like history, because of what history is, because history is merely, you know, the best documentation we have of human life. We will never truly know how many people, died in the name of one plot or another. And
Indeed.
with that, we kind of end these fantastic set of 3 episodes.
Yep. Real good.
Yeah, really great episodes. I think it's the kind of thing like we kept hearing from the other guys in the chat, like,
Yeah,
I'm really
fuckers watching ahead of us.
Yeah. First of all, watch it ahead of us would be like, yeah, nice go. I'm glad you guys are watching it now. Only took the tastemakers of the GLORIO Network to finally drag you on board. But
Damn straight.
like in the first few episodes, they were like, this is kind of interesting. It's pretty dry though. But I think here's the thing. I will agree that I think the beginning of Legend of Galactic Heroes is a bit dry by necessity because you have to introduce these characters. But I don't know.
Now that the characters are like
established,
coming in their own, yeah, like it's way better.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, it's fantastic, and a part of me thinks that like it's only going to get better. Like, as the more these characters like get screen time, the more and more characters get better developed, the more fun and interesting I can
Yeah.
So
I'm
before we
I want to be saying every episodes. Wow, this is the best 3 episodes yet.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have any thoughts about kind of these 3 episodes in general? Kind of how they relate to our journey amongst the Sea of Stars. So far?
I think it really is the fleshing out of Reinhardt that we needed, particularly in the present, because like we were saying all the same shit last podcast, but that was all flashback, and like we didn't really get too much of that in present day Reinhardt, So it's easy to say like, well, in the past, he had all these ambitions, but in the present, it's really good to see him really sticking to his guns, I suppose, for now at least.
Yeah.
And like having the scenes where he just talks shit to the face of the other nobleman, like anytime his like composure is shaken in any way.
Right. I think it works well because if Reinhard was not willing to like talk a little shit, about
Yes.
about the system, to the face of these shitty nobles, I think it would be too easy to argue, or it would be easy to argue he's still too complicit in the system. But
Yep.
we start to see more of the Reinhard that is,
Gotta get some teeth to him. Come
yeah,
on.
he has some teeth. Like he's not always going to play the nice guy. He's not always going to play the role of the good and honorable young commander. Like sometimes he's going to put some ill-bred dogs in their place.
Yep. Yeah.
But
boy. Yep. I'm just really enjoying this show.
yeah, same. And I know they we've been told maybe don't watch the previews because they tend to spoil. But
Yeah, I
I
was
think
going to ask you about that. Do you think we should continue watching the previews?
I got to be honest. I think so. I think it's fun to
Right.
I think it's fun to speculate. So
All right.
so before we cap this off, you have any thoughts on the next episode preview about Jessica's
Yeah.
newfound political career?
I'm curious because in Dinoitese, this was like maybe a 20-second scene of her like shouting through a megaphone. But we're getting a whole episode on it.
Yeah.
Maybe flesh out some of that. I think that it's probably going to be like, because what we just got was kind of a like deeper dive into what's going on in like the depths of the Empire, and so I think we're going to get more of that on the FPA.
I agree, and I hope you're right, because now that we've started to see more kind of, if not necessarily, sympathetic but interesting aspects of the Empire.
Yeah.
It's now the thing I want to see more of on the FPA side, because honestly, like on the FPA side, you have Young, you have Shenkop, Kazelnu's all right, Friedrich is fine, Sidolate seems like a cool dude. Okay, actually, I'm listing a lot of names, so maybe there are actually a fair number of cool guys on the FPA side. Bucock. Oh man, can't wait for Bucock.
I hope that's in this.
Oh man, I hope Bucock's in the next 3 episodes. Fuck. Revealing our hand that we did. We did watch D&T.
We're getting close to overcoming where we're in D&T.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
exciting. I'm so excited.
It's really exciting.
So far, our journey amongst the Sea of Stars has been relatively charted out. Like, maybe not specific destinations, but we've kind of had a general, our star map was kind of generally filled out for us. But
we basically know where we're going
from here on out. Now, man, here on out, it's
within 2 or 3 more podcasts.
Yeah, 2, 3
totally
more podcasts.
Uncharted.
Yeah, we're gonna be in some fucking Mass Effect 1 galaxy map shit, man. It's a whole wide galaxy to explore. Hopefully not entirely comprised of barren planets with repeated
Pressure
assets,
balls.
but definitely looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And so next podcast, we'll be covering episodes 10, 11, and 12.
Yes, that'll be 2 weeks from now.
Yes.
In all likelihood.
Okay, yeah. Even though I have more shit going on next month.
Oh, do
probably that's we'll figure it out.
Flash it out. That's why we look, we're not to get too deep into it. This is not the Legend of the GLORIO Heroes editorial discussion podcast, but
Indeed,
right. We are busy, and that is why to the viewers out there, to any of you guys who's still sticking with us after 2 weeks, thank you, and I hope you understand that is kind of why we're keeping it bi-weekly, because we want to give ourselves enough of a buffer so that we can always get an episode out every time. I'd hate for us to do weekly and then start missing episodes. We have discussed in the background, considering either changing it to weekly or watching more episodes every 2 weeks. Both have their pros and cons. We're still talking about it, but for now, look forward to us talking about episodes 10, 11, and 12. As always, you can watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes on High Dive, where they are currently streaming the entirety of it.
The number 1 show on High Dive.
Yeah, number 1 show. You're welcome, High Dive. let's see, basic housekeeping. As always, you can find this podcast and the rest of our content on theglorioblog.com. You can follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. You can watch the podcast on YouTube at you look up the Glorio blog or you look up Legend of the GLORIO Heroes. You'll find us on YouTube. Like and subscribe, blah blah blah. Leave a 5-star review, all that shit. Tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
Tell your enemies. All that shit. And I think that'll do it for this week's podcast. As always,
thanks for
thank
joining
you.
us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Iro, for joining me.
Thank you for putting this together.
Yeah, well, a podcast cannot be a one-man act. It requires both of us to put in, the best work week. Put in our best hot takes. Our best hot new Legend of the Galactic Heroes takes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think with that, we'll see you next time amongst the Sea of Stars.